Wow, it's a great vantage point up here. Lovely, I can see all of you finally. Hey everybody, and I first want to say thank you to all of you who at the Australian Reiki Connection who've invited me to be here. I'm very excited to have traveled all the way from California to be here for the first time in Australia and to be speaking about something that I love the most in the world, which is Reiki and animals. So thank you all for being here, a part of this wonderful event. And I have to say that I'm kind of in awe of the other speakers that I'm alongside. I'm not quite sure why I'm here, but I'm here, so I'm going to talk to you guys about what I love, which is animals. So I love this topic, the future of animal Reiki, because it's actually been coming up a lot for me in the last year or so about the direction where we're going as far as the work that I do with my nonprofit at the Shelter Animal Reiki Association. We do a lot of work in shelters, in rescue organizations, with different kind of rescue groups, you know, that may not have a center, but they have foster homes. And also we have a variety of different sanctuaries around the world that work with us, and a lot of veterinarians, holistic, mostly veterinarians that work with us. And so to see the direction that the nonprofit is going, so I'll talk to you about that tonight. I also want to give you an overview of what I see Animal Reiki is and how best to communicate that so that we can strengthen this modality for the future. So for me, it's really about connecting with clarity and compassion. So those two things are so important when we're working with animals in Reiki. And as I go along, I have all these pictures of animals I'm going to share with you today. So I'll tell you a little bit stories about each one. So this is my horse, Shawnee. And Shawnee came to me about, oh gosh, I think he's 28 now. He's retired, and he was 15, so it's been about 13 years. And I met him through a friend who had her horse at this barn, and here was this neglected horse, and he had rain rot all down his back, and his mane was like, you know, Bob Marley. And I thought, oh no, this horse, and nobody's come to visit him in so long, and his owner had gotten sick, and so she hadn't come out for like 5 years. He'd just been out in this field. So it just happened that she was willing to adopt him to somebody else who could take more care of him. And so I fell in love with him and quickly discovered that he had 3 bad legs due to being overused as a cow herding horse. And so the vet basically told me, a year tops, you're going to have to euthanize him. So don't do it. And so I said, I cried. She drove away and I cried and I sobbed and I went home and I did Reiki. And I knew this was my horse. He had the most beautiful heart, and he was my very first horse. So I had to wait till I was an adult to be able to have this dream of having a horse. Since I was little, I had that dream. And I knew he was the horse. And I was not daunted by what the veterinarian said. So I said, I hear what you're saying, but I'm going to get this horse. And so we began our journey together with Reiki every time I saw him, and we rode on the trails. I didn't do anything that would bother him too much, but just enough that actually when you have bad arthritis, it's good to move. Those of you that have arthritis know that. So I was able to, with Reiki, to ride him for 4 years before I retired him. We actually did a dressage show just before he retired, and we got first place in training level test 1, which is very basic, but still, right? And he's now 28 years old and totally healthy and happy, and he's far outlived, and I just know that it's the Reiki. So for me, Reiki is so dear to my heart for all the animals that I've known over the years, but especially the animals who are in my family. So for me, when we work with animals, Reiki is about meditation. And the reason that is because animals are very sensitive, and hands-on physical contact, well, animals don't even have hands unless you're working with monkeys, but I don't recommend hands-on for those guys either. I have a little bit of experience with monkey Reiki, and no, hands-off is better. Just trust me on that. For me, it's really about meditation. That is where we get the best results with animals, and we can work with all kinds of animals, monkeys and tigers and elephants and wild animals, and also feral cats or abused animals, animals that have been traumatized, that don't trust people, and so on and so on and so on. When we take away that hands-on aspect, then the whole world opens. So I want to talk a little bit about meditation. Oh, and by the way, this is my rescued dog Mystic, and this picture was taken for my book Reiki for Dogs, which some of you may know that book. And I love this picture because I wrote Reiki for Dogs when I was recovering from breast cancer, and it gave me something to focus on that was positive and healing. And my little dog here, who's such a basket case, Franz knows because I'm always talking about all of her issues. She's a rescue that came with many, many, many problems, was very sick as a puppy when I got her, is partly blind in one eye, is afraid of her own shadow, and on and on and on. Yet this puppy, she's about 6 months old in this picture. When I came home from the hospital, she was 3 months old, and she laid down at my side and was with me to help me to get better. What puppy acts like that? She was there. Actually, she's the one who found my tumor, so basically she saved my life in many ways. So now I'm working with her with Reiki and Chinese herbs and other modalities to help her to gain confidence in her life. But she likes to meditate with me. Okay, so for me, the heart of Reiki healing is to simply meditate with your animal. So instead of thinking, okay, now my animal has an issue and I need to do Reiki to them, let's do Reiki. Instead, if we say, let's just meditate together. So it's like being Reiki with your animal instead of doing Reiki to your animal. Just that shift in your mindset changes your vibration. The animals will be like, instead of running away, like, oh God, no, not that Reiki stuff again, I'm leaving. Instead, they'll say, wait, what are you doing? Oh, can I join you? It's my choice. Okay, I'll come join you. So when we learn to relax and simply be present for the animal without judgment, we will discover the heart of healing. Healing radiates from one heart to another. And that's really how I see Reiki. What's really interesting, this pig here is Harley the hog. He's rest in peace. Harley, he passed away about 1.5 years ago, but Harley lived at a beautiful ranch you can see here in Northern California called Brighthaven. This is just their front pasture here where he used to live. And this is a mulberry tree over him, which interestingly, when they bought the property, was dead. And when he became paraplegic, he chose to live under the tree, and the tree began to bloom. And I thought that was quite beautiful. So this is his special mulberry tree. So when Harley became paraplegic, the vet said, well, you got to put him down. And Brighthaven is a hospice, so they said, well, and they do natural dying with all their animals when they can, which is most of the time, which is 99% of the time. And they said, well, why would we? Well, because he can't walk. Well, okay, we have dogs in wheelchairs. We have cats that drag themselves around. The cats don't like the wheelchairs, no. They said, we have a lot of paraplegic animals here at our sanctuary, and he's still healthy and happy and loves to eat, and so we're not going to do that. So there was kind of a big uproar, but finally everyone, the vets and everybody realized, okay, well, he seems comfortable, he seems happy. So he was paraplegic for 4 years before he passed away. Totally happy. He would drag himself from under his tree to his mud thing and then drag himself back over, and he'd roll over and he'd sit up to eat, and so it was really inspiring. But what I would always see when people would come to do Reiki, I do classes every month in California here at Brighthaven for the last 11 years, so they're kind of like my second family and all their animals at this point. What I realized, which was so beautiful with this pig, was that everybody would come in and they would see that he couldn't walk. So the first thing they would do, oh, that's so sad. Oh, isn't that awful? Look at that. And, pity, basically. And Harley would just sit there and they would sit down. I'd say, just sit with them, kind of like that. You sit near them and you just meditate. Do your Reiki practice. I would give them the Joshin Kokyoho or meditate on a precept or something. One of the Reiki practices to do. Maybe some hands-on healing while you're sitting there on yourself. And over again, they would come back and they would be smiling, they would be giggling, because he would start oinking at them when the Reiki felt really good. He'd kind of look at them and start he'd make all these noises, and then he'd roll over and show his belly, and and they would come back just laughing and smiling, and I would always say, well, if you could sum up Harley in one word, what would it be? And they would say, joy. Joy, he's pure joy. This is an animal that, most of society would just give up on and say, oh, he's of no use and he can't walk, so get rid of him. But here in this place where he's cherished for who he is, and where people just come and sit to relax and be, then they could see the beauty of his spirit. They could share this space of comfort together. And I saw the people healed. So a lot of times we think about, well, I'm doing the Reiki, so I'm healing you. Poor animal can't walk, But then I would see them come back and they'd been healed. And I see that again and again and again. So it's that beautiful cycle of healing that happens when we touch hearts that creates that. And that's, for me, this picture, this is what Reiki with animals looks like. And it's very different than what we think of that with people would look like. So Reiki isn't just meditation, it's a moving meditation. So animals show us how to remain informal, natural, and connected while meditating. This isn't always easy. So often we think of meditation, what do you think of? You might be sitting quietly, maybe in your house you're on a bench, right? Maybe you have a nice little altar and you have some candles and things, and your eyes are probably closed. You're going inward, and you pick a time of day when it's quiet and nobody's bothering you and so on, right? Animals won't have any of that. I remember once I brought one of my students to Guide Dogs for the Blind, which is a big, beautiful campus in San Rafael. And we have a whole team of Reiki people. They bring the dogs there for 3 months to do their training, and then they have a graduation, and they get paired with their blind person, and then they go off to work and to give that person independence. They're amazing dogs. And so I remember once I brought one of my students with me to do Reiki with the dogs there. And we went in the room. They have a little Reiki room where we can play music, and there's pillows on the floor, and we sit with the dogs, and brought the dog, this beautiful yellow lab, in. And so we're sitting, we did meditation together. And we're sitting together, and I kind of have my eyes closed, but the dog came over, opened my eyes, and I pet the dog. And so, in other words, I'm holding the Reiki space and responding when the animal comes over and so on. And then the dog goes over to her and sits in front of her, and she's like, she's just so hard, right? And so the dog finally goes, puts his arm on her arm, and she's like, still, squinching her eyes. She wouldn't even open her eyes. And the dog's just standing there. And then the dog turns and looks at me. And I'm like, so the dog, came over, and he eventually settled and went to sleep. But afterwards, it was so funny because, she's like, the dog was totally disturbing my meditation. And I said, wait a minute, what are we doing here? What's it about? Connecting. So this is the way animals connect. So we want to, be open to that. So, it's not easy. It's easier to not be disturbed and to have everything quiet and to close your eyes. You have your eyes open. It's easier to be knocked out of that space. But if you really love animals and you open your heart to animals, they know how to connect heart to heart. They know how to be present right now. So you will be able to do it. So I always say, start practicing on your bench at home with your eyes closed, then sit with your eyes open with your cat, then walk your dog, but imagine you're attached heart to heart instead of with the leash. Then stand out in a herd of horses and see what happens. And so you can kind of practice holding that meditative space, holding that open heart, holding that beautiful Reiki space, even with if you're moving and even with the animals' activities and so on. So this is a typical class at Brighthaven. We'll stand out with the herd, and the horses may come, they may stand 15 feet away, so we allow the animals to sort of come to us and just move with them. So again, meditation is key because animals are attracted to a quiet mind and heart. It's true that we can't stop our mind. If we stopped our mind, we'd be dead. We wouldn't be here anymore. So I'm happy that I have an active mind because it means I'm alive and I'm here, which I'm grateful for. But we can quiet our mind. And for me, it's like the 5 precepts that Franz was talking about earlier. That's one way to quiet our mind. We can also do breathing practices. We can focus on a Reiki symbol. We can chant a mantra. By the way, animals love chanting, outward chanting, many of them. But you can also just chant inward. So for me, all these points of practice for Reiki are all ways to help quiet our mind and therefore our heart. When we're with animals, they help us to let go of the intellect and come from here. For me, it's really more about like your mind kind of dropping into your heart, and then that beautiful radiance that happens in the Reiki space. So these are 2. On the right, there's one of my students practicing at Brighthaven, and this is a horse named Mocha, who's one of the rescue horses. She's blind in her right eye there. And she came over, so the way we do it is we'll just stand maybe against the fence. You don't have to have your hands out. And on cold days, I tell people, put your hands in your pockets. No reason to have freezing hands. But she was just relaxing, and Mocha came to her. That's really key, is you hold that space, you radiate that space, and let the animals come to you. So here's Mocha just coming, and really, this was a beautiful, if I could have too bad I don't have a video to show you, but she just stood there for about 10 minutes. And her head was kind of bobbing, and she was licking and chewing, which is how horses show they're relaxed. And her whole demeanor, it was just the most beautiful connection and peace between them. And this is me with a couple of sheep at Remus, one of my Sarah organizations. They are located outside London. They're a big farm animal sanctuary. They have over 200 animals. Most of them horses, about 85 horses, most of whom are over the age of 20, and about 20 of them over the age of 40. So they have the oldest horse just passed away last week, named Orchid. She was 52. So their care of elder animals is amazing. They have 2 different kinds of sheep there. These are the old rickety sheep. That I call them, the way they walk, and they have such arthritis, these old ones, and it's so cute because this one day I was offering Reiki, and they're very timid, and they all follow each other. So when I bring the students in, they all go, and they run on their little skinny legs, and they run into the barn. And so we just plant ourselves somewhere, and we just do the practice. And very slowly, the brave one will come out, kind of look around, and then you'll see the other ones watching him. And then they go exactly in the footsteps of the other one to make sure that it's safe. And pretty soon, they all come out. But there was this one day that was so beautiful. So the oldest sheep, who could barely walk, he was so arthritic, and it was like every step he was so slow and just was very off balance. But he wanted Reiki. And it was like the parting of the Red Sea. I'm not kidding. There's a herd of sheep. The old rickety one comes out. They part, and they make this path. And the old one, very slowly, and he kind of bumped into, he was kind of off balance, and it was as if they said, "Oh, pardon me. No, go ahead. Really, go ahead." Like the most polite being I have ever seen, seriously. And this old sheep comes right up to me. And first he kind of put his head, then he turned to the side for a while. He was kind of, then he turned his back. And then he turned to the other side. Full 360, turned to me again, looked at me as if to say, thank you. Then he turned around and he And again, the herd parted, and he went back into the barn. It was like nothing I was like, what? But the only way that this happens is if we don't try to put our expectations and say, okay, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to go into the barn, and the really old one's going to come out. And then, when we have these kind of thoughts and or if I say, okay, hey guys, I'm here from California. I flew all the way to England. Sheep Reiki people, come on, let's go. Forget it. We have to go in there and just let go and let them come to us. And these two sheep were really shy ones. And so one of them came and then the other one came and they both stood and I had just my hands on their heads and they have the most woolly feeling. And they're the gentlest creatures and I've worked with a lot of different species. I think sheep are some of my favorite. Also, because I'm half Irish, sheep herders from Longford, although I've never been there. So I think it's something genetic. But, these sheep, when I'm with them, it's like, again, the feeling of peacefulness and of me being healed just by being in their presence. They're true gurus, if we open our hearts and allow ourselves to see that. So one of the things that I always say in my classes is Reiki doesn't come from your hands, it comes from your heart. And I think this is so important, again, as I said earlier, that animals don't even have hands. But it's also about our state of mind, because as humans, we are very tactile creatures. And so as we, when we want to bring comfort or we want to offer Reiki, we tend to go here, and because we're people. So if we can let go of that, in a way, it's almost like shedding your humanness and going to a deeper space where it doesn't matter if you have hands or don't have hands. You might have paws, you might have hooves, you might have claws. It doesn't really matter because the energy is coming from here and radiating. This really softens the feeling. So if I'm standing with this cat, this is one of the hospice kitties at Bridehaven. So if I'm sitting here offering Reiki to this cat, and I'm seeing, because imagination is a powerful thing, and animals feel what you're thinking. They're very sensitive. So if I'm imagining that these beams of light are coming out of my hands and going into the cat to try to, fix this or that problem, that's going to feel like, poking on the cat. And this cat, being very fragile, will get up and walk off. So we don't want to poke people with our Reiki, right? Or sometimes I call animals people, you know what I mean? If instead we imagine that our heart is this beautiful light and it radiates from our whole being, and we're holding this beautiful light, and then we say, I invite you to share this beautiful space. And we hold that space. No need to push anything, no agenda, no expectation. If you want to leave, that's great. If you want to stay, that's great. If you want to climb into my lap, that's great. Whatever it is perfect. Then we get even very sensitive animals will accept and connect. For me, Reiki with animals is about radiating compassionate presence with your whole being. And it's kind of funny because a lot of the pictures I have today are from Bridehaven, which, as I said, is a hospice. And when I first got into Reiki, I imagined in my mind, the business person was talking about, imagine your business. So for me, I imagine I'm at this fancy show barn with $100,000 horses, and they're doing these competitions, and they get a sore muscle, and they're all shiny and muscly, and I go over and I'm doing Reiki on these fancy horses, and then they win the blue ribbon. Then there's these, agility dogs that are doing all, this is what I imagine in my mind. What did the universe say? You're going to go to a hospice with three-legged cats, with dogs in wheelchairs. They're all on their way over the Rainbow Bridge. Some today, some next week. No cats under 20. Say goodbye to doing Reiki on kittens, honey, because it ain't going to happen. So it's just funny the way things work. But actually, for me, it was such a help in my learning process about working with Reiki, because a lot of the principles that I use in my Reiki classes are also principles of hospice with the animals. Because if you can do a successful Reiki treatment on a hospice cat who's been rescued from probably an abusive situation, is now in hospice, if you can get that kind of animal to say yes and come and crawl into your lap, or even just to come and lay next to you and relax into the space, you can get any animal to say yes. So it's that really that gentleness of heart and mind and just being present that really helps the animals to trust. So this is a shelter cat from the East Bay SPCA who we did some filming for. I have some videos on my YouTube channel showing me doing some Reiki with dogs and cats at the East Bay SPCA shelter, and this was one of the cats we did. So for me, Reiki with animals is about creating a space. It's not so much about, I'm here, the animal has to be right next to me. It's about just this open, maybe an infinite space even. So if I sit, for example, this cat, this was at the end of the Reiki treatment, but this was a big room. It was like their gymnasium. So it was actually bigger than this room. It was about double the size of this. They brought the cat in. I put a blanket in the middle of the floor. I sat down and I started to meditate, my Reiki meditation. And for me, that looks different every time, depending on what I feel like doing. Sometimes it's the Joshin Kokyoho breath. Sometimes it's doing hands-on healing on myself. Sometimes it's focusing on the 5 precepts. Sometimes it's chanting or visualizing a symbol. So it just depends on, the breathing is one of my favorite things to do. So this is after about 15 minutes. So this cat had the whole room, could walk around, and walked around, investigated, checked out the other people, checked out the camera, make sure it was safe, whatever. But this cat, I didn't know this cat. The cat chose to come and sit next to me. Why? Because they're so sensitive. They feel that energy. You can see on his face how relaxed he is. I don't have to touch him. Better for me to just rest in that space. If I were to reach out and put my hands on him, what might happen? Startle, run away, I don't know. But this is a very powerful connection even without the touch. So for me, Reiki with animals is all about state of mind. Let me tell you about Makoto. I'm in love with you, Makoto. So Makoto lives at the Care Foundation in Florida. He was rescued from a production company with his mother, who you'll see a picture of her in one of the later slides, and 2 tigers. And they were all starved because the production company ran out of money, stopped feeding the animals, closed down, and left the animals there. And one of the employees, because they said don't tell anyone, but one of the employees felt bad because he cared about the animals, so he called the SPCA, and they got a hold of Kristen, who runs the Care Foundation. So she rescued Makoto, his mother Tashi, and 2 tigers from there. So when Makoto came, they told her, well, here we've got these animals, but we're just going to euthanize him. And she said, why? And they said, well, he's a man-eater. Well, he's wild cat, so they go, no, he actively tries to kill you. He pretends like everything's fine. He just, as soon as you turn your back. So he'd almost killed 3 people who just tried to get him from one place to another, and one of the people that had tried to feed him. And so now they had teams of 3 and 4 people just trying to drop the meat in the cage so they wouldn't get killed. So this cat was angry, okay? But Kristen, being Kristen, said, he's the perfect cat for me, so just bring him, So he ended up there with his mom. So I didn't know anything about this story at all, and I came to visit Care for the first time, and I didn't realize it, but I would be diagnosed with breast cancer 3 months later. So I came to the Care Foundation, and I met Makoto for the first time. When I saw these eyes and when I looked into his face, I had an overwhelming feeling of déjà vu. I know you. And I suddenly realized I'd been having this recurring dream before I came to Care, and it was this face. So I walked up to the cage where he is, and I said, she was just walking us through and showing us the animals, and I said, I you. I know you. I've seen you. And he started purring like this little, he rolled over on his back. He leaned against the cage. He was rolling on his back and making these little noises, stretching his feet out. And Kristen said, what? What is happening? I said, "What? I've seen him." I thought she meant, why are you Googling over him? I said, no, I had his dream, and I think I've seen him in my dream. I just know him. I just feel like I know him. And she's like, oh my God, he's never acted like that. He's totally vicious, and he hates people. And I can't believe that he's rolling. I've never heard him purr. She was just freaking out. So what ended up happening was she told me the story about him, and I ended up sitting with him in meditation and Reiki. Again, we're not in the cage with these animals, but on the other side. And we had a really beautiful 4 days. I ended up getting very sick when I was there. I think my whole body was fighting this tumor that I didn't know I had. And I sat with him on the last day, and I could feel his energy and power. I mean, look at that. Look at those eyes, you know? It was so healing being there. So when I left, I cried because I didn't want to leave him. And about a few months later, when I found out that I had cancer and I was going to have this surgery, and it was all this thing, I was like, okay, Reiki's going to save me. Reiki's my lifeline, and it helped me get through. But every time I would meditate, that face was like this. And it was as if he was saying, I'll give you my fierceness so that you can kick the butt out of cancer, and you give me some of your gentleness so that I can get along here with my caretakers, and I can have a life here. And the next year, so he continued to come to my meditations every day. I could feel him walking next to me as I walked down the hall to go into surgery. He was there. And when I came back a year later, Kristen was so funny. She said, it's so weird. He had a totally change of personality right after you came to visit last year, and I have no idea what it was. And I'm like, yeah, I have no idea. That's just how it is with Reiki, right? You just go, right, who knows what it was. So state of mind, this is how, for me, if I sit with this Makoto, this is what I do. I dedicate my practice to him. So I just say to him, I dedicate, I'm going to sit and practice, and I dedicate this to you with my whole heart. Then I focus inward on whatever practice I'm doing. So in other words, I'm not thinking about healing you, sending energy to you, fixing, making you calmer. You shouldn't be so angry, be calm. I'm not doing anything like that. I'm going inward. If I do use touch, which I wouldn't for him, but if I was doing it with a horse, let's say, that came up to me, even if I put my hands, I don't focus my mind on my hands. Because then the animal goes, whoa, what are you doing? So trying to keep that openness, even if I'm touching them. And most importantly, to let go of wishes, expectations, and judgments. Because the more that we wish that the feral cat would come up to us, the less likely they will. Especially cats are very, they'll do the opposite of what you want. So the more that you just let go of it all and just be, the more comfortable and safe they'll feel. So again, to touch with the heart and see with Reiki eyes. By letting go of directing physical contact, we train ourselves to also let go of fixing and focusing on what's wrong, and to see the perfection of the spirit. And this is something that you have to do if you're working with hospice and shelter animals, because otherwise all you do all day is, oh, poor thing, oh no, oh my God, oh, that's awful, oh, and then you're just in a negative space. So if you go deeper, I call it seeing with your Reiki eyes, but what I really mean is you see with your heart. So this kitty passed away shortly after this photograph was taken, but if I look at her and see she's old, she's blind in one eye, you can see her bones, she's so skinny, she's in kidney failure, I don't see who she really is, because that's not who she is. Who she is a beautiful, bright light. Perfect. Even there, even in that state, she's perfect and beautiful and bright. If we can learn to see that with our eyes open, when we look at the animal, we look deeper and see that truth, then the animal, for me, it's as if we mirror that to them. And I've seen shelter dogs or cats that have given up hope, that are just, the spark is gone, come back with that Reiki connection and that seeing from here. It can help them to find that hope again. So, really important to create a space of positivity and see the animal's perfect, beautiful inner light. This is one of the pit bulls. I've worked with so many over the years at the Berkeley Animal Care. They're mostly all pit bulls, and this one you can see was used as a bait dog. So it's illegal, but they do train these dogs for dog fighting in certain neighborhoods. So if I were to go and work with this dog with Reiki and just see the scars and see the sad expression, then I'm going to come away feeling depressed, sad, probably not want to go back, and it will be an unpleasant experience. But if I can look deeper and see the strength of this dog, the beauty of this dog, how the dog trusts people and is sweet. This dog crawled into my lap, you know, a 60-pound lap dog. But to see that beauty and that perfection, even amidst all this other stuff, you wouldn't believe the transformations that can happen even in one session with a dog like this, with that positivity, can make a huge difference. Again, you know, if you look at them with the pity and or worry and sadness, then often, you know, they'll turn around and walk off. They just won't want to be with you. Create a space of gratitude. This dog is from Bridehaven, was named Molly, and she passed away pretty quickly after this photo was taken. So to sit with her and to realize that I'm here in this moment, and thank you for sharing this moment with me, and the peace and the harmony between us is so beautiful. And if we can just be there, that is the most powerful healing we can ever offer another being. But it's when we forget the gratitude of this moment and we worry, we're sad, oh no, what happened to you yesterday? Or, oh my God, are you going to die? What's going to happen tomorrow? Now, where are we? Somewhere else. We miss this beautiful moment right now. So I have so much gratitude to the animals of Bridehaven for teaching me this as I've walked their journey in hospice, so many over the years. Create a space of humility. When we open our hearts to listen and be completely present in this moment, species differences soften and health imbalances dissolve. Healing is love. Reiki is love. This is just, you know, if you sit at Bridehaven and you hold that beautiful open space, this is what might happen. The animals come to you. The animals are drawn to you because your beautiful light is shining without judgment, without trying to fix, without focusing on what's wrong, just being there. And for me, listening to the animals as our teachers. That, for me, is the biggest lesson I've learned. One of them from Animal Reiki is, I'm not the healer who knows everything, who's here to save the day. Actually, you are going to teach me. So I'm here, and I always say to the animals, you know, I'm here, and please teach me, please show me. Create a space of compassion. This is Tigger, who is one of the other tigers who came in with the shipment with Makoto. Unfortunately, he passed away a few months ago of a broken heart. Actually, his sister, who came in with him, had a lot of infections and problems because of her bad treatment, and so she passed away, and he passed away within 3 weeks. He just gave up when she was gone. But he was such a beautiful Reiki teacher, and he would roll on his back when we would do Reiki. It was so cute to see him do that. If I were to sit with Tigger or with a tiger, with any of these wild animals, this is kind of what I say in my mind. I would say something like, I'm here to support you in this moment, whatever it looks like. I see your perfect heart. all is well. Thank you for sharing this space with me. I might not say it all, that's a lot, blah, 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 but I might, something of that may come. This is kind of the frame of mind that I try to be in when I sit with the animals. And again, looking deeper than what's wrong. So, connecting with animals. Here's some tips. Focus on the practice. Okay? There's a lot of other stuff you could focus on. Again, what's wrong? What looks terrible with their condition? What might happen in the future? Oh no, is the feral cat going to come out or run away from me? We have so many ways that we can get distracted. So try to let go of everything and just focus on the Reiki practice, whatever it is you're doing. If it's a breathing technique, if it's focusing on a symbol, if it's chanting a mantra, if it's contemplating the precepts, whatever it is that you do, even doing hands-on healing on yourself while you're sitting with the animal, just focus inward on that practice. Keep your eyes, ears, and heart open. Just be present. Move as needed. Allow the animal to move freely. That's really important. Don't close the doors in a little room. Force them to be here. Leave all the doors open. If you're with a horse, much better that they're out in a pasture. If they're in their stall, try from outside the stall just to give them more space to move away if they want to. And keep an open mind, letting go of expectation and doing. And always at the end to always say thank you. Because what an honor to have an animal choose to connect with your heart. I can't think of a bigger honor, really. Always let the animals lead. So the only way, if we go in there thinking, but I'm the Reiki person and I'm here to show you, then we come with a problem. The animals would be like, really? Because as far as I can see, you're a kindergartner with this energy stuff. I'm the master, right? So to remember that, to go in there with that heart of understanding the animal's the master, listen to them, observe them, remember they're your teachers, and also just practicing. So having to just keep practicing. Even if you get it wrong 50 times, you'll get it right the 51st time. And animals are patient teachers. These are two of the, this is Natty is the white horse, and EJ is the little donkey. He's a little miniature donkey. And when EJ came to Brighthaven, his feet were like skis. They were this long, they curled up because he hadn't been trimmed in like 8 years. He'd been left in this little stall and that was never cleaned out. He wasn't fed well, barely enough to survive. So he came in, was terrified of people, terrified. It took them 3 months to even catch him so they could trim his feet. And the whole time he was getting his feet trimmed, he was sure they were killing him. And then as soon as they let him go, he ran off and he went, hey, I can run. And he looked around and looked at them like, maybe you are nice. And so, but this white horse, Natty had lost a foal. And so when EJ came, she decided, it's my missing baby. And so it's so cute. They're never apart. So if you find yourself at Brighthaven and you'll be sandwiched. This is the Natty EJ Reiki sandwich right here. This is Harley again yawning. I just had to put this in because it was adorable. He would yawn 500 times. For me, happy animals are Reiki animals. I told you I was going to show you Makoto's mother. Here she is. Tashi. So I just wanted to mention about if animals say no to Reiki, this would be what it would look like. It's very definite. So if you're not sure, if you have to ask yourself, are they saying no? Then they probably are either saying yes or maybe. And the maybe could go either way. So keep your state of mind open, be gentle, all those things I talked about, and it'll turn into a yes. But if an animal's irritated, agitated at your presence, they're saying no to Reiki, and then you just walk away. No reason to force things, even though it's your human timeline. Tashi, you need to be healed in 30 minutes. Come on, let's get with the program. You know, it's not about our timeline. It's about what's best for them because it's their journey. So, and try not to take it personally because she does this to me too, you know. And then Makoto's like my dream, but then I come over to her and this is what she does. So, made for a good picture. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about, and I don't know how much time I have. What time is it? 26. Okay, good. So a few more minutes, then we'll do questions. So I wanted to talk about connecting with vets and animal caregivers. And this is something that I have a fair amount of experience over the past several years because of my work, again, with my nonprofit. And we work with a lot of vet clinics. I have a lot of students that are vets that are incorporating it into clinics. I have a lot of organizations that work with vets who work with us. So at least in the United States, Canada to a lesser extent, and the UK, we work with a lot of different people. So I'm not sure about the situation here in Australia. So I'll just share from my view, you know, what's been going on in this area. So the most important thing for working with vets, animal caregivers, animal lovers for me is to have a clear definition. So especially when I'm working with vets, what I say is Reiki is a spiritual practice of compassion for all beings. That's it. Then I'll say, you know, these meditation sessions are given for stress reduction, relaxation. It's not a substitute for medical diagnosis and treatment. We don't diagnose, we don't prescribe, we don't interfere, blah, 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 blah. Really important to say all these things. What's starting to happen in the United States, to a lesser extent in Canada and the UK, is that veterinarians are creating legislation so that to have any holistic modality performed on your vet, you have to be a DVM, a doctor of veterinary medicine. You have to be a vet, a licensed vet. So this is happening very slowly. They are trying to pass little things here and there. There was a recent one, I don't know exactly what happened with it in California. I think it didn't pass, but it was to say that you couldn't get any rehab of your animal except by a vet. So that would mean if your dog needed massage after surgery or any kind of that, you wouldn't be able to do that with your massage therapist or chiropractic or acupuncturist or, you know, Reiki person or anybody, anything. So this is kind of the direction. And the way that all the vet boards are writing the laws is to say that if you say you're doing treatments, if you say you're doing healing, if you say you're whatever, you have to be a vet. Just, that's it. Can you imagine if they did that for people? Everyone would be up in arms. Like, you know, excuse me, we have rights, but for some reason I don't know. So for me, I think it's very simple because if you use my approach, it's really about meditation. It's really about opening your heart and being in a space of compassion. So I'm not trying to rehab. I'm not trying to diagnose. I'm not trying to heal the animal because actually the animal heals themselves. So I don't see a problem. So for me, I'm sad that this is direction it's going, but it makes it, for me, it's very clear if we are going to save this profession with the veterinary boards that we have to go in the direction of the spiritual practice because that is something that can't be bothered with. Or we have to hire a bunch of lawyers and try to do something, but forget that. Just meditate. Okay, so again, language is important. So if I'm talking to vets or professional organizations who are trying to decide whether we should go in there, and I don't want to step on toes that I'm trying to diagnose and to do medicine of some kind. So I might talk about being a practitioner. I won't go in there saying, hi, I'm the healer. Healer's here to heal. I won't use that kind of language. This is a tricky one. I'm so used to saying treatment. It's the way I was trained. It's the way that we talk about with people. And I don't see anything wrong with the term, but I find session is a lot easier for veterinarians to feel comfortable with, and shelters as well. Supporting versus healing. So instead of saying, okay, so I'm here to heal the dog, we can say, I'm here to support the dog's healing process. Again, being versus doing. Thinking about a space of being, which is really meditative space, versus, okay, I'm doing this healing to the animal. And being a facilitator instead of manipulating energy. A lot of what some of the articles I've read by vets that are very against Reiki, they describe Reiki practitioners as people who manipulate energy within an animal, and that is very dangerous. And so we have to be really careful, because if we're not clear, then people could misconstrue. And so I just like to always say, we don't manipulate the energy at all. You know, we're facilitating a space, and the animal heals themselves. This is their journey, not mine. So just being really clear with those kind of things. There was actually an article several years ago in Cat Fancy magazine written by a vet, and there was a chart, and it was about holistic therapies and cats, and I think she compared acupuncture, Reiki, and one other thing, maybe homeopathy or something. And then there was a chart in the middle of the page that showed all the ways that Reiki harms cats. And I was like, what? It was like, you know, listed, and I'm like, no. And I wrote a response, which of course was printed in an obscure page on the website, which no one would ever see, but I was like, no. But I think that because, as we all know who are sitting here, Reiki is really a lifetime practice, and it takes many years to even begin to scratch the surface of what we're doing. So it's very difficult to explain to somebody who doesn't know what it is. And if they're just looking at it across the room, they could be like, what are you doing? You're manipulating energy. You're diagnosing what's wrong. So we have to, I always tell my students when they take my level 1 class, I know you're a beginner, I hate to tell you, but you're now an educator for the community. They're like, what? I'm like, yes, that's right. Because unfortunately, we have to be. Another one of the cats. This is before Reiki, after Reiki. Can you see she's on her back with all her feet in the air? Okay, and I just wanted to show you quickly, and I'll leave some time for questions. I think I have a couple more slides. But this is how I do a demo. This was at a pet expo in Northern California, and we got a volunteer. That's actually at the time was the largest dog in the world, a Great Dane that was like this tall. And that's Leah, the vice president of the Shelter Animal Reiki Association, doing the treatment there. So we came and did this expo. So while I was speaking on stage, she was doing a chair treatment on the person, and then the dog could decide whether or not to take part or not. So I don't like to do demos. Some people ask me, are you going to have animals on stage? Are you going to do a demo? I don't like, it makes me uncomfortable to put the animal on the spot and say, here's a huge group of people, now we're going to heal you, we're going to show you how, it's like, So this is a great way where the animal's like, oh, well, you're helping my person. Okay. First he tried to sit on her lap, which he's so tall, he just turned around and sat down. Then he decided that wasn't very comfortable, so he laid down. But keep in mind, this is at an expo, so there are hundreds of people. It's a huge auditorium. Hundreds of people are walking all around. I'm on a microphone like this talking. Look at him. Could not resist the Reiki space. So having more of a less direct approach like this can help people to see. The audience was amazed because of all the activity, and he was real hyper before we started. But if had Leah just taken his leash and tried to do something with them on stage, it wouldn't have looked like this. So just something to keep in mind, taking the pressure off the animal, and then they can take part in their own way. Okay, so that's my other horse, Kodiak. I just had to show you his picture because I love him so much. Miss you. Okay, final reminders. Every animal is your teacher. Every animal. Since I'm in Australia, I had to put the crocodile. This is Ngozi, also lives at the Care Foundation in Florida. You would not think this would be a good Reiki partner, would you? Would you just think like, no thank you, or you would think, nothing will happen here. Well, what's really interesting is he looks, or is it a he or a she? I'm not sure. Sorry, don't remember. Actually, I think it might be a she. But she looks like a stone and doesn't move. And people would sit outside her cage, close their eyes, sit on the chair, and then they would open their eyes to check on her, and she'd be like 10 feet closer. but completely still. So you never quite see her move yet. She's never in the same place. It's kind of scary. But one of the treatments, it was so cute. One of the treatments started bobbing her head up and down during the treatment for like the whole treatment. And they're like, what does that mean? And everyone's like, I don't know. What does that mean? I don't know. But she really liked it. But I've had been to care 5 years in a row now, so we know the animals pretty well. She grows about 12 inches each year. What's really interesting is when I send people to work with her, and normally I might send a pair of you, so I send 2 of you to do chair treatments on each other and invite her to share the space. These are the most emotional treatments in the entire class. And we have people sitting with tigers, with Makoto, with the monkeys. Well, they're not emotional. They're all over the place. With the birds, and then they have some alligators as well. They have bears, some other big cats and things, some big lizards. They have a tarantula, so lots of snakes like cobras. You can do Reiki, again, from a safe distance. This is the animal that makes people cry almost every time. So I was asking myself, why is that? Okay. Why is that? Here's what I think it is. See what you think. I've been thinking about this. You know how when you have to process something, it's hard, it's not so easy? And what would be like the best place to be in to really have something old come up that you need to deal with so you can release it? You would want to be extremely what? Grounded. Can you think of a more grounded animal than this? So if you share space with her and you become as grounded as, look at the ancient wisdom in those eyes. If you open your heart to that and you share that space, you're in a completely different space for your own healing. Now, something that happened when you were 5 can come, you can look at it, let it go with some tears. And it's happened every year, every single year that we've gone. Is the people, I can't believe it. When I was 4, my cat died and I hadn't thought about it. And here I am crying and I just feel so much lighter. And, just stories. Everybody who sits with her. So grounding is such an important piece of what we do, and the animals help us get there. So remember, be open, be humble, be grateful, be compassionate, be Reiki. And I invite you to visit me at my website, Animal Reiki Source, or at my nonprofit. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, and I hope to connect with you guys when I go back to California. I hope to see you guys on social media and connect, and thank you.